Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was a...
But I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, pistols and fondle slap of choice. I don't know when that was. It doesn't really matter. Internet, professional wrestlers, and not Jesse Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want you to have just read two sources whenever I try to prove out. It's not. If you expect your government to tell you the truth, you're going to be sadly disappointed. Another one of these things.
Dear Lord, what a dirty old man, huh?
Really? You can't be serious. Is this really how you want things to be? Come on. More hooker, eruptions. Eruptions, whatever.
Like Dave Powers kind of...
Really?
Allegedly broadcast live from Pima Region 2. Within the borders of the formerly united and currently occupied states of America, we bring you the Ochelli Effect.
It's like, damn sure, no, I'm an original. We have all these situations. I'd love to know why it takes 50 years, for a 19-year-old girl to eventually get up to gumption to put these things out.
Yes, that is certainly that. We are live on UCY.TV radio. This is the Ochelli Effect. I am Chuck Ochelli, your host. Every Tuesday night, I do devote it to the Liberty Beacon. And tonight it will be no exception, of course. I just want to say, though, before I start on that isn't it fascinating that we are now watching the ISIS construct turn into the ISIL construct, because now that, official pronouncements are that it's ISIL. There is a difference, by the way, and that relates to the region by which they would be invading and, occupying and everything else. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and look it up. The more expanded area of activity now relates to that L at the end of the moniker. So, keep a praise to that in your minds. While they tell us that, there is this taking of areas on the Turkish border, which should be no surprise to anyone, etc., etc., etc. But we're going to leave that and Ebola out of the mix for the moment. And, before I do anything else, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Whether you're at the UCY.TV/TOE page, or you're on your TuneIn app, or you're on your Apple iTunes radio function, or if you're on Shoutcast or whatever, thank you very much. You're all greatly appreciated. So, as is typical with the Liberty Beacon night on my show, we do often have Mr. Roger Landry come on first. And with any luck and with the praise of the electronic gods, we will have Mr. Landry here in just a few seconds. And I'll be able to have a discussion with him. And I know that there's a couple of interesting things rolling around in his head. And there always is, folks. So I advise you to go to the Liberty Beacon, all one word.com, and take a look at the plethora of articles, opinions, different things that Roger has done. And if you're on YouTube, always check out the Liberty Beacon rants. And it's going all over the place at this point, I got to tell you, and expanding. And there's a reason for it, and that is solid information, real topics with the most reasonable commentary that you've ever seen, although sometimes it does get a little angry. And always a pleasure to have Roger Landry on. Roger, how are you this evening, sir?
Sometimes it gets a little angry. It's called the Liberty Beacon rant for a reason. Boy, I'll tell you, the old man can really get the blood pressure worked up.
And by the old man, you mean yourself?
Well, I just turned 60 years old, and no, I don't consider myself old, but I kind of like that as an affectionate term.
I may have to start calling you that now and then. Just to see how you react to it coming out of my mouth.
Well, it wouldn't bother me, because from someone like you, Chuck, who presents respect until he finds out that it's not deserved. When you say something like that, then to me, I would interpret that to mean that you are associating me with some level of intellect, some level of wisdom acquired over the years, some level of respectability. So I don't look at it as a negative term. I don't. You're only as old as you feel, and if that's the case, I wonder where my Pampers are.
Wow. And I'll say this, you are definitely my predecessor on this planet, and therefore deserving of respect. Because I'll tell you another thing, in my evolution regarding where I've come from and what I believe at this point and what I see, opening my eyes and actually observing the world around me. If people didn't know any better, they would think that you and I had to have met many, many years before, because somehow or other we are simpatico, like from the Beetlejuice movie there, where you see,
Yeah. Yeah.
But oddly enough, folks, we didn't meet that long ago. Roger wasn't part of my evolution. I wasn't part of his exactly, but it seems as though our paths were destined to cross. So
well, if you stop and think about what you just said, okay, if you are pursuing the truth, there is only one path. The little paths shoot off in all directions via propaganda, via misdirection, via redirection, which we both know that there are so many that are so good at that. And these are the people, maybe not, because there are so many good people in this government. We don't say this enough. There are so many good, honest people in this government. It is the people who hold the positions of power that nudge them in one direction or another. If you have a department, which I did a lot of work with the government, so I know there's massive departments, and each person does something that's maybe 1 foot off the path. The end result, because the government is so compartmentalized, what everybody does, they only are pretty much aware of what they are doing. When it's all accumulated and it's all compiled at the end, each person having taken only one step off of that path, the end result is a severe redirection from that path. So it's not so really, I don't know, mind-bending that you and I would think so much alike, because if you, in fact, pursue the truth, there is only one path. So we have to be walking that same path.
Right. I couldn't have put it better myself. Since we are seeking the same end, eventually we have to be walking on the same path. So that's all there is to it. So for tonight, though, you have actually two articles, which I should probably grab the links for and try and throw into chat.
Well, we'll get to definitely one of them. If we don't get to the other one, it's worth reading.
Well, that's for sure. We'll direct people to look at the other one if we don't get to it. But let's start out with that, because I don't want to miss out on this one, the first one. That's for sure.
Well, the second article is Monsanto and our government, or is it their government? That has a lot to do with what we're going to discuss in the first article, but it just brings a particular case to the frontal lobes. It just really puts the spotlight on what we're discussing. But the first article, I really love the title. And the title is very, very unique. And would you like me to start in on that, Chuck?
Yeah, please do, because that's what caught my eye first. I kind of said, what does he mean by this? And I was just like, okay, I'm going to let Roger explain it, though, because it was just one of those things that struck me like it should be something that gets out there very easily based on the title. But it
did quite well, yes.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Well, especially if you're my age, one of the sayings that most of us have heard when trying to state that something is exactly what it is, it's not something else. We used to use the term, a duck is a duck is a duck. That means no matter how you look at a duck, it's still a duck. Okay? So the title to this first article is, a duck is a duck is a duck, except on 9/11.
Oh, yes. And isn't that fascinating? I mean, because after all, in my generation, couple of decades later, Roger, mind you, actually about a decade and a half later, what we were looking at was a slightly different variation on a duck is a duck is a duck, which I'm sure you've heard too, which is, if it walks like a duck and if it quacks like a duck,
it's got to be a duck.
It must be a duck. Of course,
Right.
we got to make it a little more simple because, after all, the education system started to go downhill during my generation. But anyway.
No, actually, I like that, and I almost used it, except I was feeling a little nostalgic. And I remember my father using this term to me over and over and over again, because I was one of these very inquisitive children. I never knew enough, and I always wanted to know why. My father got so sick and tired of hearing the word why from me that he told me if I used it one more time, he was going to ban it from my vocabulary forever. I wouldn't be allowed to use it in his house. And my father's an ex-Navy chief, or was an ex-Navy chief. He's passed on. But he was very stringent as far as the chain of command, so to speak.
Right.
And so anyway, let's get into this, because I'm sure that you're going to have a lot to say. So let me get through this article. And it's rather short. It's basically a commentary that leads into a video I would like everybody to see. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I'll explain a little bit more about that once I get through the commentary. But again, let's start with the title. A duck is a duck is a duck, except on 9/11. Now, a lot of you are going, huh? So let's get into an explanation. On September 11, 2001, this was a day like no other day in the history of the universe. This was a day when the laws that define the very physical makeup and reactions of everything that exists shifted into a reality never experienced. This dimensional shift was confined to the immediate vicinity of the World Trade Center complex, leaving the rest of this planet unaffected. Now, anybody with half a brain and knowing the hardcore information that is available today on 9/11 would have to consider this the only explanation viable for the events that occurred on this day in infamy, if we are to believe the information that is put forth via NIST and the 9/11 Commission report. This is just a bold, hard fact. Never in the history of this country, or the history of this planet for that matter, have so many blatant lies been intentionally and maliciously sold to the public. These are inconsistencies, lies, proven so by scientific fact over and over again. In order to facilitate these lies, we have all been spoon-fed by NIST the laws that constitute science. The very laws of physics itself as we know it would have to be rewritten and proven based on concepts that are totally foreign to that very science. Yet they stand today by virtue of a government that is ripe with complicity and guilt. This is not a statement of conspiracy or anger. This is based on true scientific fact as researched and presented by many of this planet's best and most respected scientists, architects, and structural engineers. I never thought I would make a comment such as this, but it appears we live in a country populated mostly by individuals with a lack of testicular fortitude. No balls. A poll conducted not too long ago states that the number of people living in this country today who believe the NIST findings or the 9/11 Commission report and our government's stance on this event are now a minority that is shrinking yearly. So, if this is the new truth, a fact, it is the new truth by a majority of this country's population. Where is the mass blowback? Why hasn't this government been forced by an angry and focused public into conducting a second, independent, and thorough investigation? I'm going to tell you. The biggest reason is the sheer number of people who just don't wish to believe they live in a country where a government could be this evil, this complicit, or this culpable. Things like this can't happen in America. or things like this don't happen in America.
Mm-hmm.
If proven true, it would totally shatter their reality and pop the comfort bubble so many try to maintain in this disintegrating and chaotic world today. They struggle against the reality that there are those whom we trust to govern and protect us, who consider life so cheap or disposable that the loss of almost 3,000 lives is merely the cost of doing business or accomplishing a goal. Excuse me. The USS Maine, the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, the Gulf of Tonkin, and how many more? The precedents have been established, and in each case we see the shepherd, the elite, maneuvering the flock, we the sheeple, via the mechanisms of patriotism, anger, and fear in a direction to suit their goals of power and enrichment, and always to the detriment of American freedoms and lives. This is not new or even original, and it is blatantly obvious to what is now a majority of Americans and global citizens. This is all blatantly obvious. And again, all to facilitate a goal of the self-proclaimed elite, those who would play God. Let me tell you something, folks. The world, the rest of the world outside of the United States is very aware of the realities of 9/11, and they are laughing at us. I deal with people across this planet on a daily basis. This morning already, I've talked to somebody in Australia, I've talked to somebody in Finland, and somebody in the UK. And every time this topic comes up, they laugh at us. They know what happened on 9/11. They cannot, for the life of them, understand where we live in a country with a majority via polls, scientific polls that were conducted, where a majority of the people in this country now no longer trust the word of NIST or the 9/11 Commission report or what our government says, but yet we refuse to stand up and push back. So what is the goal of these elitists? How about the goal of shocking the population of an entire country into complicity with those who would light the fires of global imperialism? The invasion of Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, the total ruination of Libya. Need I go on? How about the usurpation of freedoms and rights that allow we the people to govern this republic and redefining this republic into a fascistic oligarchy controlled by the very people who own and control our leaders? Anybody who doesn't believe what I just said, get your head out of your butt. We live in a fascistic state. It was described by Mussolini when he said fascism can better be described as the combination of the power of large corporations and the state. Look around you. How about the destruction of America's free will and personal independence to a point where we are no longer a threat to the inception of a new world order? How about etc. ... I could give you a list as long as my arm. Why? Why these goals? Because 9/11 is a day that lives in infamy. So what I presented here was a relatively new video with a semi-fresh look and information some of who will watch it are already aware of. The goal of this commentary that I just gave to you and the video that I would very much like you to watch, it's an hour and a half long, it's worth the watch, is not so much to teach you anything new. Most, if not all of this, has been seen before, but to present it in a new perspective, somebody else's look at it, to keep it fresh in your mind in the hopes that one day we as a people will find the courage, the testicular fortitude to hold those responsible accountable and heal the scar of ultimate tyranny that defaces the conscience of America.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Chuck, I know that you are very aware of, and that's specifically why when I wrote this, I wanted to use it today about the goings on 9/11. So I figured this would give you an excellent platform to shine, my friend.
Well, I don't know how much it makes me shine, but let me tell you this. The reality about a lot of the incidents that you have spoken about, later on in history, it was revealed to the public, even here, that so many things had been done under false precepts. We have Pearl Harbor is a perfect example, the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
The USS Maine was blown up by the United States.
That's
It wasn't
correct.
torpedoed by a Spanish ship. It was
And
never proven, and no torpedo was ever found.
there you go.
But the elitist who controlled this government wanted an imperialistic United States. And they used the Maine to trip that off. And what did we end up with? We ended up with Puerto Rico. We ended up with Cuba. We ended up with the Philippines. We took on one of the old empires of the world, Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And we took everything we could from them. And it was all based on a false flag event.
Right. Just like the Vietnam War had been launched after the Gulf of Tonkin incident. And of course, anyone who has done any sort of research on that now knows that there was no incident. Okay. Claiming that there were aerial assaults that were going on and all this stuff from places that didn't even have an air force, claiming that there was damage, there was engagement of ships in a particular area who weren't respecting. I mean, if you don't believe me, look it up.
I'll tell you one that's even more blatant if you do the research on it, but most people are not aware of. And that is the attack by Israel on the USS Liberty.
Oh, absolutely.
The Liberty was attacked by Israel, okay? And all of their outgoing signals were jammed. That ship was intended to be sunk with all hands on board. 0 survivors. It didn't happen, but that was the intention. The intention was to blame it on Egypt, to blame it on an Egyptian attack on the USS Liberty, which would facilitate U.S. forces and Israeli forces marching into Egypt. But it didn't quite work out the way they wanted. So there is a blatant case of a failed false flag attack.
Well, yeah, because unfortunately there were witnesses to the attack. There were actually, I believe it was Russian aerial assets which showed up and actually had their eyes on it. And there was no way to pull this off without being spotted. I mean, the Israeli planes, which were unmarked and everything else, which we all know is not something that is typical, barraged that ship, and also. The style with which this was done, the actual blatant way that the people that were in charge of our military assets at that time positioned that ship, refused to allow air support to be sent. The whole thing just...
And Israel constantly says, even till today, it was a mistake. We never got any IFF, identification friend or foe, from the ship, which is a blatant lie.
Well, because visually, first of all, it was flying a U.S. flag.
Yeah.
That's undeniable. I mean, and not the kind of flag you have on your front lawn. Oh, no.
I spent a good many years in the U.S. Navy and working for Raytheon, doing DoD contracts for the U.S. Navy, and I am very, very aware of the ability of IFF to travel a very long way, and the only way that IFF signal would have been squelched is for these Israeli aircraft to be jamming it. There is no other way that signal would not have gotten out.
Right, and it actually would have required a specific type of jamming.
At a specific frequency.
At a specific frequency, which would have meant that it was absolutely targeted to be jammed. They wanted,
and this was a U.S. ally.
Right. Our ally, our air quotes ally, was jamming this ship's signal, which meant basically all that was to try and assure themselves that there would be no other witnesses.
Yes.
Because that was the fact. Because if there was anything in the air at the time, it would have gone to, and you can disagree with me if you like, Roger, but I don't think you will. If there was any other asset of any other country which was not directly involved in the situation, if they knew that this was going on, if they had picked up on it, whether through radio traffic or through visual observation or whatever else, what would have happened is they would have at least flown like a scouting kind of mission to go check out what was happening. So if you take away the fact that they were transmitting the signal, if you jam that, and then, of course, attack it and sink it, you could claim anybody did it if nobody else put their eyes on it. Unfortunately for them, they got caught. So this is what really happened with the Liberty when you get down to it. But the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the reason why I bring that up is because nothing happened. Nothing happened. It wasn't an attack. There was possibly, maybe, a bullet hole. Maybe. And I'm talking about like a stray random bullet potentially could have made a hole in the hull of a ship. Maybe. And, if you take a look at the way the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was written and everything else, you know very well that it was written ahead of time. Okay. Interestingly enough, because all these plans are usually written ahead of time, that's about the way that goes. But, regarding the media in other countries and how they're laughing at us over 9/11, people say, well, that's just a crazy assertion, because I've looked at, Al Jazeera, U.S., and I've looked at BBC U.S. Yeah, again, you have not looked at what is actually circulating in the other countries, because they have chuckled over things regarding our ignorance, I would say, for more than half a century. Why do I say this? Because go ahead.
There's a big organization, relatively speaking, when we talk about social media size groups. Big organization in Germany, big organization in France, big organization in the UK, all pushing, believe it or not, for a new investigation into 9/11. And they're literally so frustrated with the massive inaction in this country. And as I stated, okay, and if you Google it, you will find that there was a poll done on the what was called the conspiracy theory of the truth behind 9/11. Mm-hmm. And what the article actually states at the end of the article is that due to the reversal in roles, meaning that more today, and I believe it's well over 60%, and it by now, and that was, I believe, a year and a half ago this was done. By now, it probably approaches 70% of this country does not believe the NIST report, does not believe the 9/11 Commission report, does not believe what the government stance is. If you figure close to 70% of this country now believes that we can no longer trust any of the government's position or reports on this, then it's very, very hard for the rest of the world to understand our inaction. And if you stop and consider that, the way this article that I gleaned this information from ends is that now the conspiracy theorists are the people who do believe the government. And because a majority of the people now do not believe the government.
Right, and rightfully so. I mean, and again, I know everybody hates when I do this, but look, September 27th, 1964 was the official release date for the Warren Commission report regarding JFK's assassination.
Oh, I knew we were going to go there. I knew.
Now, let's just remember this, okay? At that time, the official pronouncement from the government was the majority view, and I mean, almost not worldwide, though. I've got to be honest with you, because immediately in that first year before the Warren Commission even finished its reports, there were stirrings in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, everywhere on this globe, except in the United States, where we kind of accepted the idea of Oswald being a lone assassin. It was almost like this very small minority that we saw back only a few years ago regarding 9/11. So you see echoes, okay? What happens is originally, even we believed the whole thing. We believed it. Most of the world believed it, but there were stirrings because they were saying this just doesn't make any sense. Even independent investigations conducted by other governments, including the Soviet Union, by the way,
Yes.
showed that there was something very, very wrong here.
Well, because we accused Lee Harvey Oswald of being a Soviet agent.
Well, right, because he had actually defected to Russia at one
Right.
point. But
absolutely.
But of course, we learned later on, exactly what the details of that were, and that's still a shadowy area. And
Yes.
believe me, I spent a lot of time studying that. But of course, coincidentally, at the time, there was a false defector program that our country was running, where they were sending young men over to the Soviet Union under the guise of becoming part of the, communist state and everything else. But that's got nothing to do with anything. The point here, though, is that at that time, you were in the minority if you believed that there was a problem. Now, over a decade later, okay, of course, very much spurred by the public release of films and everything else, and the screaming of people who were just, stating there was something very, very wrong with the explanation, there was something wrong with the investigation. About that time, the popular opinion started to shift. You had about a 50-50 problem. And then there was an outcry, which caused the Congress to reopen the investigation. We had the House Select Committee, et cetera, et cetera. This is what happened. Now, I fear that we may be in the same situation here unless people really wake up faster than they did back then. And this is one of the reasons why I point to it. Because, look, over half a century later, justice has not been served. Okay, I realize we're talking about the assassination of a president versus, 3,000 deaths and everything else, but you've got to understand it was a traumatic event which caused a lot of things to happen, including an invasion of a foreign country for purposes which are still, not too clear to the general public, but it seems as though there are many nefarious purposes for having invaded Vietnam and having been involved in all those adventures in Southeast Asia, including the later excursions into Cambodia and Laos and everything else, and take a look at the resonating effect of that whole situation just by the removal of that executive. Now we have a Middle Eastern situation which continues to expand 13 years later. Continuous expansion by the use of further and further boogeymen. And it is costing us lives. It is costing us the quality of life for people that return here. I mean, let's not even discuss the civilians that are being slayed wholesale. Trillions of dollars while our economy is suffering as it is. Oh, yeah. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. You don't hear me? You're on. I'm on. I think you're on. We seem okay. I don't know if you're muted over there. But we're still involved in this particular adventure, let's just say, based on what was, the genesis of which was 9/11. The Iraqi thing started afterwards. Of course, that was a convenient excuse and blah, blah, blah. And we've been over this. And like I said, Afghanistan, well, why not continue that too, after all? Because that war of surrogacy still continues onward. Can you hear me yet, Roger?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to push off into, well, not a different direction, but I want to amplify how I started, excuse me, this entire commentary.
Right.
Okay. And where does a duck is a duck is a duck, except on 9/11 come in? Well, basically what I stated when I opened up this commentary is that in order to believe the NIST report, in order to believe the 9/11 Commission report, then what had to have occurred on this planet is something that has never occurred on this planet or anywhere in this universe within the realm of human knowledge. We had a dimensional shift whereby the physics that controls everything, every bit of matter and energy in this universe made a shift outside the laws of physics.
Mm-hmm.
And it was confined solely to the area immediately surrounding the 9/11 complex, the Twin Towers complex, solely to that area, whereby you had 1,800-degree fires, which they were actually starved for oxygen. There's a lot of proof stating they never got above 1,500 degrees. You have to be over 3,000 degrees to even weaken steel, never mind melt it. So the laws of physics changed, okay? We were melting steel at 12 to 1,400 degrees now, okay? We were seeing a building collapse in on itself, on its own footprint, which means that every single supporting structure all the way around that building had to give at the same time. We saw a building falling at next to free fall speed, which is physically impossible when you consider that the supporting structures on every floor below where that plane hit had not been damaged, had not been heated up. So it would have fallen, boom, on itself, the upper structure, and it would have stayed there. But yet it fell at free fall speed. So again, we have totally negated the law of physics. We have changed the law of physics. We have changed the law of physics with molten steel. We have changed the law of physics with a free fall structure. We have changed the law of physics with thermite being found in the dust on the ground. We have changed. What we see is the most amazing occurrence in the history of this planet and probably the universe. We saw a dimensional shift.
Well, the dimensional shift. I gotta take one issue with you, Roger. One issue here, and I'll say this, and this is unusual, folks. So let's see what I gotta say here. Here's the deal. One very small issue. First of all, Building 7 didn't collapse at exactly free fall speed, but it was pretty close.
I didn't say free fall. I said close to the free fall.
Right. You said next to free fall speed. I understand that. And it was anywhere from 66 to 72% of what free fall speed should have been. Okay. Now, the other thing, though, that I will say is that it didn't simply defy physics and logic and everything else in New York City. No, because, of course, on the very same day, we have a plane which aerodynamically is incapable of doing the flying that they say it did.
At the speed it was traveling.
Hitting the Pentagon, too. The Pentagon. That's an impossibility. I'm sorry. You can't keep an airliner at the level they're saying. It could not have struck where it did. It disappears into a small hole. Well, good luck with that. There's a plethora of stuff. And I'll tell you one other thing.
There's an even bigger thing than that.
Shanksville, Pennsylvania, a plane vaporized, which didn't even hit a structure.
Yeah, so, if you stop and look at the Pentagon, okay, in order for it to strike where it struck, it would have had to run parallel to the ground for quite a distance, all right? And it would have been so close to the ground that unless it was perfectly level, and most pilots today at ground level will tell you they cannot control an aircraft in that dense an atmosphere at that speed, that precisely, the wings would have hit the ground long before it ever hit the Pentagon, which means it never would have hit the Pentagon. It would have cartwheeled and sent it off in a totally different direction. It is physically impossible for a plane to make that large. The wingspan, all it had to do was a 2.5, 3 degree dip of a wing, and that wing would have slammed into the ground and it would totally have cartwheeled. And there is no pilot alive that will tell you that at 600 miles an hour plus, they could maintain in that dense an atmosphere a plane that large with less than a 2 degree shift in the wingtip.
Right.
Nobody can do it.
And that's regardless of the obstacles, which there were many.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's a bridge, there's the road, there's the light poles.
Light poles.
There's the cars. It's impossible. But even if, for the sake of argument, we removed all those obstacles and gave you a completely flat trajectory and a flat plane, and a flat plane meaning the landscape would be flat, not the plane itself.
Right.
But I mean, meaning a flat landscape
a flat trajectory with no obstruction whatsoever. It's still aerodynamically impossible for in an aluminum alloy plane, or okay, fine, some of it might have been made from the carbon and all this other thing, but regardless, the point is this is not the most sturdy thing in the world. At that speed, to maintain that trajectory is aerodynamically impossible,
especially in the dense atmosphere we find at ground level.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because it would create greater resistance and would tear the thing apart, which would
vibration, which is why these pilots are telling you cannot maintain an aircraft that close to the ground at that speed with a perfectly level flight. There would be a shifting, a vibration. The wings would dip in one direction or another, and all it would have taken is a couple of degrees, minor shift, okay, of those wingtips, for one of those wingtips to hit the ground, which would have immediately have sent that thing in a totally different direction and totally destroyed it. It would have shattered it. So we go back again to what our government is telling us is that our generation was witness to the most awesome, the most special event to occur in the known universe, in the history of mankind, and maybe even the history of the universe itself, where the laws of physics absolutely shifted to a totally new dimension, but only at ground zero and no place else. Because the only way that the scientific facts, and I'm not saying the proof, I'm saying the scientific facts can be validated, is if the laws of physics were negated. And how many of you out there are that stupid to believe that a duck is a duck is a duck, except on 9/11?
Well, there you go. I mean, and that's all there is to it. I mean, you're supposed to believe that all of these things occur. I mean, the molten metal, the absolute results of what happens when thermite is used, being in the debris.
The speed of the collapse.
The speed of the collapse. All of these wonderful, wonderful coincidences and freak occurrences all just happened to converge on September 11th, 2001.
Every single high-rise building with a steel frame on this planet, and some of them have burned for as many as 18, 19 hours on multiple floors, well beyond what we saw in the Twin Towers. And they were much older and didn't have the sheer fortitude of construction that the Twin Towers had. They were much less structurally sound. And no tall, freestanding, steel-structured building, no matter how long it burned, has ever collapsed due to fire.
Except the three that happened to completely collapse on September 11th, 2001.
Yes, and one of them never got hit by a plane. So here we go. We're in that magnificent dimensional shift that the world has never seen and may never see again. Aren't we lucky? We were the lucky ones to live to see that. Isn't that special?
That's just, but that's part of the joke about this, because what has happened is, and I'm telling you, I mean, people that listen to me, they know where I come down on this, as far as, they don't know necessarily what I believe about who the conspirators were, or necessarily what the complete explanation is.
Another show.
Oh, please, I would love to do that.
I have a 64-page history of all of the events leading up to 9/11.
Well, that would be something, and I would love to do at least 2 hours with you on that, because
we can do that on one of our new shows on the Liberty Beacon Radio Network, and I'm sure that I will absolutely love to have you in on that, because I know that this topic probably riles you as much as it riles me.
Well, it has, and I've admitted even that at first, look, and this is going to sound strange, but at first I bought the line. Okay, I really was one of those people that said, well, you know what? This simply means that we need to, eradicate everything in the Middle East because they're the problem. I believed the whole sort of, narrative regarding this. I wasn't aware or awake at the time, that's for sure. And it took me a
Chuck, I
couple
was
years.
working for the military industrial complex at the time.
Right.
Let's go get these SOBs.
You got
Let's wipe them off the map. By golly, let's kill them all.
Yep, exactly. And there are still so many people out there that retain that thing that they were fed by propaganda. I mean, this is what it is. It is just
minority now.
But they're now falling into the minority,
and
which
they have. But that tells you and me exactly what I said. We live in a society that has a definite lack of testicular fortitude.
Well, right, because after all, if let's just say the majority absolutely believes that this has been covered up, that we've been lied to about it, regarding the mainstream explanation, okay, if that is the case,
and it is, yes,
and it is, then why is it that we are not seeing a whole lot more than just the minority of us screaming about it all the time?
Because most Americans refuse to believe that anything like that can happen in America. Things like that can't happen in America. And they don't want to step outside of that comfort bubble. The propagandization of the American population is so effective that we all, not when I say we, I'm talking about the majority of Americans, have built that comfort bubble around them. They want to go home at the end of the day. They want to watch mindless TV. They want to play video games. They want to smoke a joint, have a few beers, have something to eat, have a little with the mama. And that's all they want in their life. And they don't want to hear about what's going on in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, if you look at the news in this country, less than 1% of the news in this country covers the absolute horrors that are being perpetrated around this planet. If you listen to BBC, if you listen to radio and television out of the Middle East or France or Germany, you will hear about the absolute terror going on in Eurasia, Europe, the Middle East. If you listen to American television, 1% of it, and that's the 1% they want you to hear because it will scare, again, the shepherd steering the sheeple into the proper direction, utilizing the mechanisms of patriotism and fear.
Oddly, Roger, I have a phone call. Do you want to take a phone caller?
That's up to you. It's your show, my friend.
All right, let's bring him on in. 7. Let's see. You're on the air. Oh, there he goes. Was calling in and he's gone. I was wondering what you might have stirred up out there, so I was going to take that call, but
well,
okay.
I never ever say anything I'm not willing to back up. So.
No, absolutely, and there's nothing I can disagree with you about, except that I said that we got to go outside of the World Trade Center complex to see the defiance of physics and everything else here, because that's the only disagreement I had. But
that's not a disagreement.
Well, see, but there you go. You don't disagree with it, but it was something that you said, is that it only happened in the World Trade Center complex. And what I'm saying is, no, it happened there, it happened in D.C., and it happened in Shanksville. Okay. Because
but my title doesn't say just the Twin Towers. My title says a duck is a duck is a duck, except on 9/11. I include the entire scenario.
Right.
We've only talked, and I only led the majority of my information as it applies to the Twin Tower complex, because that's where the massive majority of this dimensional shift took place.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe that all of 9/11 is part of this dimensional shift.
Right. And the greatest convergence of the defiance of, physical reality did occur there. That's for certain.
Right.
So I would say that for sure, but I mean, let's not forget there was all these events that went on,
yes.
and the failure of our military to be able to intercept planes, and all of a sudden air traffic control, which handles so many different aspects of it, didn't handle it properly and everything else. I think that phone caller's back. Did you have something you wanted to add in, caller?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What'd you want to add in?
Hello?
Hello.
And, are you guys live?
We sure are. So are you.
Radio channel? Well, that's pretty cool.
Okay, what did you want to add? What did you want to add to the discussion?
I turn up my phone because I can't hear it right.
Alrighty.
I just want to add in that I think we have to slow things down on the speed of information because like the average population can't handle like a billion words a minute. So you only remember like one thing at a time. Like for me at least, you know.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, you gotta slow things down. Well, not be too slow though. But I've called in the past. I'm the one who called the geoengineering chemtrail thing.
Right. No, I remember you. And the thing is, you're probably right. Sometimes I do go a little quick, but there is a lot of information here regarding each of these incidents, and I like to get in as much as I can. And unfortunately,
exactly. Sometimes when it goes too fast, the average mind like mine can't. I don't know. It's hard. But then it's like so much to where you listen to it for a whole hour or so, and then you might remember one thing. I believe it should go. Well, I'm not. I love your show though, Ochelli.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. And you know, I encourage anybody who missed stuff during the show that you know, if you want to, there's always the MP3s you can download and all that. You know, so you can catch stuff later. You know, and that's what I would that's what I would suggest, because unfortunately, I mean, it's my habit to kind of talk quickly, and I don't think Roger.
Oh no, not yours. Anybody's. You know, the information goes so quick that if you're trying to speak to the pop, you know, I mean, I don't know how to explain this. It's a psychological thing, but in the end, I'm the geoengineering chemtrail guy that called in a couple times before in the past. I don't want to waste much of your time. Hello?
No, I appreciate it, and I was muted there for a second.
I believe actually, I mean, the 9/11 Trade Center thing is very important, but I think the chemtrail thing is way more important than anything else on Earth.
Well, you know, again, I do appreciate that. Mm-hmm.
Day and night. Remember that. And, you know, Dane Winnington's on UCY.TV, and we got to talk about that stuff more often, too, you know.
Yeah, no, I'm always happy. I would love to have Dane on to discuss that particular topic, and I have covered chemtrails to some degree, but I try and cover a lot of different stuff, man. And I really do appreciate you calling in, and you know how. Look, I'm doing the best I can here, and you know, and quite honestly, I mean, I know I talk a little quickly. I know I move along a little quickly, but it's just kind of how my mind works. And believe it or not, this is very slowed down compared to the way that my head really envisions the things I want to do.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
I only get to like maybe 10% of what I actually want to talk about, regardless of how many hours I have to broadcast. So, but look, thanks for calling in. I really appreciate your input. And I'll tell you what, if you want to get in touch with Dane Wigginton yourself and tell him that I've tried to get in touch with him, and I would love to have him on to discuss that. I would be
Chuck,
you're a little bit more.
Chuck, hold on a second, guys. Okay, Dane is a partner of the Liberty Beacon Project. I've done several shows with him. We share articles between our websites. If you would like to have Dane on one of your shows, I'm sure that can be arranged.
Absolutely. I would love to have Dane on. I would also love to have Andrew Wakefield, as I told you before. So
Andrew's a little tougher to get.
I know. I know. Believe me, this is a guy I've wanted to talk to for nearly a decade now.
I tried
I
for
would love.
2 years to get Andrew onto a show and finally managed to make it happen. So, but as far as Dane goes, Dane and I have had many discussions, and we've done several shows together. And I do take a lot of his articles and publish them on the Liberty Beacon. Dane has a very critical word that he puts out, and I promote it. The Liberty Beacon Project promotes it to the best of our ability. I agree with the caller that geoengineering is one of the most dire issues facing this planet today. But this particular show is to discuss the absolute lies, the blatant lies that are being force-fed to the American public on a continuous basis via the 9/11 issue.
Right. No, I understand. And that's the thing is that, look, I try and cover a variety of topics, and I don't stick on 9/11 all the time, but I do bring it up, and I do discuss it. And the reason is that it's still resonating as we speak. We are still experiencing the logical extensions from that day. We're still dealing with things that are
Well,
going on.
it goes even to, because this is one of the things you and I will discuss when we do a show based on what led up to 9/11. And one of the things that a lot of people are not aware of is that in 1997, a plan was formulated to attack and absolutely overtake 5 countries in the Middle East, including Libya, Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, this is not a coincidence. And a 4-star general put this information out to the public a couple of years ago that he had seen and heard of plans the day after 9/11 occurred. He was made aware that plans had been made to invade 5 countries in the Middle East, and these plans had started to be formulated in 1997. What they didn't have was a catalyst that would allow them to get public opinion behind them so that they could do this. 9/11 was that catalyst.
Exactly. This was the thing, the precursor to the PNAC report, the precursor to all of the plans that were later executed were actually conceived much earlier. This was the convenient catalyst to move the agenda forward.
Yes.
And that is something that does need to be shown to people, because I think that they just have this odd understanding that that it was sort of just happened around the turn of the century, which is not correct.
2 of our supposedly biggest allies in that region of the world are very, very complicit in this. And those 2 biggest allies in that region would be Israel and Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. Well, precisely.
We're very complicit in 9/11.
And I find it remarkable that these 2 nations are rather, if you look at the history of what's gone on in the past 100 years, okay, regarding the 2 of them, what happens here is that you really, and I stutter when I want to say that they were our allies, because they're really nations of opportunism. They're really like opportunists. They're playing both sides, which is a typical thing that does go on throughout history. But notice with those 2 players, there is never really a clear line of allegiance when it comes to when it comes to other nations. They often flip sides, which is something that we're watching happening now, in real time. I mean, you saw the thing about Turkey today, right?
Yes.
I mean, and that to me was like, well, of course, there was no reason for that not to happen in the current narrative here, because this is where these guys were launched from anyway, originally, and how do you think they got international entry into that area? I mean, this is just so ridiculous.
The strings of power The strings of power for nations like Qatar, nations like Saudi Arabia, nations like Syria, nations like Libya, the strings of power all lead back to the puppet master who pulls the strings of the royal families in each and every one of those countries. And that would be the British Empire. That would be the monarchy. These are the monarchs of Great Britain are the people who put into power the royal families that rule these nations. Okay? So when we say that their allegiance is on the fence post, or we're never sure where it's really going to come down, it always comes down to in the right place when you're looking at the perspective of the British monarchy, when you're looking at the power structure that originates from the city of London. There are 3 power cities on this planet. London, which is the financial capital of the world, and the Washington, D.C., which is the military capital of the world, and Rome, which the Vatican, which is the spiritual capital of the world. Nothing happens on this planet that is not affected by one of the 3. And when you look at what happens in the Middle East, the strings that are being pulled via the British monarchy. This is who originally put these kings of Saudi Arabia, these kings of Syria, these monarchs and rulers of Libya. They put them in place initially to maintain an empire the world had thought they had backed away from. They never backed away from that empire. They just hid it in plain sight.
Even if you look at the way that regimes like the Kuwaiti royal family, how they were put into power. If you look at the way the UAE was actually created, Qatar, Qatar, however you want to say that, that nation there.
The also, Arab Emirates, we could go on.
On and on and on and on. Yes. And the legitimate power structures, which every time, if they are actually erected there locally, if they are not directly under the British Crown's control, they are eventually swept away and replaced by
puppets.
Another puppet, which is just exactly what keeps going on. And this is 100% correct. I mean, I don't know, only because we can't go beyond 100%, 100% correct.
This is why Assad needs to go. Assad needs to go because he's not playing ball. Right. He has bought into the reality that he rules Syria, when in fact there are those who say, oh, wait a minute, puppy, we're going to give you a black eye you're never going to recover from. Remember who the boss is. And the biggest problem with Assad is that he doesn't remember who the boss is.
Well, right. And this is why, and meanwhile, what they do try and do in our mainstream, of course, before I went to air today, I was watching them discuss a little bit about how, the Korean dictator there, the Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
I always mispronounce these names, so I like hesitate a little bit. But the fact is, we know what we're talking about. This guy has now supposedly disappeared, and take a look at this particular dictator. But this guy is not really the player. This guy is not really, part of the equation regarding what's really going on here.
He was a snotty-nosed kid that was used as a figurehead by the actual power within North Korea.
Exactly. Because once again, the people that, are the ostensive figureheads are precisely that. They are just figureheads. They're not really in control of what's going on. They're not the real players. And this is why you have to sort of step back and reevaluate this stuff, just like you're saying.
I agree with you. And that's what happened to Gaddafi. Gaddafi actually started to believe that he had the power that most people attributed to him. He really started to believe that. So did the ruler of Iraq, and so did the ruler of Afghanistan on several occasions. And so did these people actually started to believe that they had the power that was attributed to them. They didn't. And as soon as you step over the line, Saddam Hussein, we hang him. Gaddafi, we kill him. We bomb him. We bomb them back into the Stone Age. It's like there is a ruling oligarchy on this planet. And this is a lot of what we see going on is meant to direct us away from that. People like you and I focus more and more on the actual oligarchs who rule this planet, because everything originates with them. And everybody you think holds power on this planet, every president, every premier, every dictator, actually works for someone else, or they damn right well better, or they're not going to last very long.
That's right. And all you have to do to understand the mechanisms by which this can easily be traced is to understand the opium wars, okay, in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And now understand that the very same, listen, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, there's another old statement. Another one of these old, sort of, it always does make sense. If it is not a problem, if it's not doing something that you don't want it to do, well, why change it? Well, the same mechanisms are being utilized throughout all these adventures. I pointed this out many, many times, and you can just, you can trace it very easily with your own eyes looking at the illicit drugs, which ended up in this country. Okay, if you look at the pattern by which they ended up here, and then you look at the military incursions and the things going on in the world, well, they all seem to be synchronous, don't they? Like I said, the Golden Triangle in, Vietnam. Well, of course, we had a heroin epidemic. Then in the 80s, all of a sudden, late 70s, early 80s, we had the cocaine epidemic. Well, why? Because we were very, very focused on areas where, well, the coca plant grew better. Okay, so of course, South America, having been where we were, involved in death squads and everything else, and if you don't believe me, go check it out. But of course, we've all heard of Iran-Contra and all that kind of stuff. So, we know very well on the public record that even some of this stuff went on. And of course, right about that time when all that had to quiet down a bit, the illicit drugs turned to the designer kind of area where you had homegrown stuff, crystal meth.
It goes all the way up to and including Fast and Furious. If you
right.
don't think there isn't massive drug lord or drug trade tied directly into Fast and Furious, then you haven't dug deep enough.
Well, right. And then after 9/11, what do we have? Another heroin scourge in this country. Well, that just happens to coincidentally line up with the fact that, all of a sudden, those people that were burning the poppy crops are no longer in power, are they? So,
and the U.S. troops are guarding the poppy fields, and so are NATO troops.
You got it. And people don't want to believe me when I say stuff like this. I mean,
I can show you pictures. But don't you have another guest that I'm walking all over right now?
Well, actually, I was waiting to see what was going on with his Skype, and it looks like he's got it straightened out. So let's just see if we got him. Dylan, are you with me?
Yep.
Okay. So,
how are you, Dylan?
Good, Roger. You?
I'm just coming down off of a semi-rant. I don't really, I have way too much respect for Mr. Ochelli to actually go into a full-blown rant on his show. But I do get to put forth a little bit of angst every now and then. So, Chuck, I do appreciate it.
It's always good to have you blow up a little bit of steam with me. One of these days, I think you and I will have to do dueling rants because when I get good and upset about something and I have the airtime, it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm a little more. I make snide remarks in between where you start to yell. I make snide remarks, and I don't know. I seem to make people a lot more angry than you do, Roger, because you're probably one of the only guests I've ever had that no one has ever complained about.
You have to be able to pinpoint the illogical discussion or pinpoint the areas where I'm putting forth erroneous data. You have to be able to pinpoint those before the type of people who listen to your show get angry. Again, if I don't know that what I'm saying has a lot of fact to back it up, I'm not saying it.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing. You don't speak on topics where you think you're right. You've gone over the information repeatedly to make sure that you're right. Because I know, Roger, you would much rather be wrong. Okay, I would much rather be wrong, and I've said this many times. I would like somebody to show me, look, all of this stuff that you've compiled, all of these things that you understand are absolutely fictitious because and give me logical and solid proof that it's all wrong.
We really live in Smurfville, and everybody loves each other, and we're all going to have cotton candy and look at pink clouds, and and play on the merry-go-round for the rest of the day. Guess what?
That. I would love that, though, Roger.
So would I.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like that, Dylan?
Yes, preaching to the choir.
Okay, so the whole point here is that we spoil everybody's day constantly, continuously, and if you are not right in what you say, if somebody is making you feel good and tells a lie, you can let it slide because they're making you feel good. If somebody is making you feel bad or worrying you or making you angry and you spot a lie, the first thing you want to do is stomp on them as hard as you can. So we cannot afford to be wrong.
Precisely.
You know what? It takes 10,000 attaboys to build a good reputation. It takes one aw shit to tear it to the ground.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Yep, you are exactly right, and that is why I know nobody ever bothers to give me the backlash for what you have to say, Roger, because you don't screw around, and that is the great thing. And again, everybody, please go to thelibertybeacon, all one word.com. And of course, I always throw this in as well. The Falling Darkness, all one word.com, because there's a bit more of an attitude there. But trust me, if you need attitude, I mean, you could just listen to Roger's full-blown rants if you want, and check out some of his articles, because now you've heard him read them on here, but the fact is the intensity comes across even just reading them. You know that this is well-backed knowledge, and even when he's speaking from a sort of a commentator's point of view, every single thing that he's saying is relevant and absolutely researchable. I mean, you could sit there and try and tear apart even his commentaries, and you're going to have a hard time. Unless you want to believe the bull, unless you want to buy the propaganda that is out there in all those Alphabet City, Alphabet Soup, entities out there that are in the media. If you want to buy all that, then go right ahead, because CNN, excuse me, CNN, doesn't tell you lies after all, right? They put pretty little blonde ladies up there, and they make sure they tell you the truth all the time. So if that's your belief, then by all means, turn off my show and go ahead and watch TV.
Well, I'm going to duck out of here because I really, really want you. Yes, Dylan. Sorry. Go ahead.
Roger, I'm having a complication with the show on Saturday. Can I talk to you either tonight or tomorrow about that? And maybe we can record something tomorrow so I can send it over.
I don't know if we can do it tomorrow, but we can get it done before Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and Chuck, I'm going to bow out because I would like you to have a chance to talk with Dylan. Dylan is one of my favorite people simply because he shows me, he gives me faith in the youth in this country. For anybody who doesn't know, and I don't care if I'm embarrassing you, Dylan is 15 years old. And his awareness of what's going on in this world far outstrips many people who call themselves liberty movement individuals. So I'm going to say thank you very much, Chuck. I always enjoy being here. Dylan, I wish I could listen in, but I've got too many other things to do. So maybe I'll get the archive from Chuck. But thank you so much, Chuck, and I wish you both a very pleasant day.
Well, you too, Roger, and it's always a pleasure and a privilege to have you on. And, you and I are going to actually have to talk pretty soon, too, but we'll do that off the air.
Okay, guys.
All right.
All right. Yes, Dylan.
No, I was going to ask Chuck a question.
All right. Bye, guys.
Take care, Roger. Go ahead, Dylan. I'm always up for questions.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to talk on air or off air, but I missed what Roger was announcing. So
No, there was no announcement today.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just leave that away for now. because
Oops.
things are on their way. Let's just say. Everybody's familiar with Dylan Wade. He's been on my show quite a few times, but of course, he is also partnered with the Liberty Beacon Project, and is definitely one of the guys that I do enjoy talking to anyway. So, of course, we'll just kill off the rest of my show with you. And I've got a caller who I think is the same caller I had before, but let's just add him in for a minute and see what's going on his mind. And caller, you're on.
Chuck, it's me again, the stupid drunk guy.
I didn't call you that, but yeah, I know who you are. What's up?
I'm the stupid drunk guy.
Okay.
I always call myself my own names because I actually sometimes think I do get dumb.
All right, so you'll be happy if I just call you the stupid drunk guy when I hear you.
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
Or you can call me any name. Nothing really disturbs me.
Cool. All right, so stupid drunk guy.
Call me retarded, idiot, any name on earth.
Nah, I don't want to go there. But stupid drunk guy, that was the name you picked. So stupid drunk guy, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm the stupid drunk guy, I get. Okay. And I was just, I called about the chems, but I really did. I enjoy every show, and maybe can one of these days me and you can have a show. Can I call in and talk for a bit, for like half an hour or something? Or I don't really know what I'm going to talk about though.
Well, dude, I'll make you a deal. If you want to come on my show and you want to talk to me for like an hour, we can do that. We can do that. And I will literally promote it as Chuck's guest tonight is the stupid drunk guy. Okay? And
okay, that's all right.
The only thing I ask is that if I'm going to do a chemtrails show, because now according to Roger, Dane, he can get Dane to come on my show. So you might have caused that to happen. Okay, just so you know. So I would like to leave the chemtrails out of it and just hear from you. So why don't you prepare something that you want to talk about, and I'll have you on for an hour to discuss it. And hell, if it's good, we'll keep it for 2 hours if you want. How's that sound?
Yeah, I can talk my voice for 2 hours.
Cool. Then that is what we'll do. All right. Do you have a Facebook account?
I am the retarded, stupid, drunk guy.
Okay, cool. But do you have a Facebook account?
I am, is there any way more to remain more anonymous than that, though?
Yeah, sure, man. All you got to do you have Skype?
I do have a Skype account, but,
Well, okay, here's what you can do. You can set up another Skype account under another name and just make a contact request to me. And just when in your contact request, just say, I'm the stupid drunk guy. And I will know that that's you, and that'll be just for you to do that. How's that?
I have a, I don't know what to do. What am I? Oh, no, am I talking on live air? Damn it.
You're on air. Yes, you are.
Oh, Jesus. Well, I'll call back some other time and try to figure this one out. Do you have a Facebook page?
I sure do. Both.
And I'll just message you through there. I'll be this stupid, retarded, drunk guy.
Cool. Make sure you tell me that that's you, and you and I will have a conversation, and we'll arrange the whole thing.
Okay, I sure will.
All right, fair enough?
Okay. Great talking, and God bless. Bye.
All right. And bless you.
Bye, Chuck Ochelli.
All right. Take care, stupid drunk guy. Anyway.
You have some entertaining people listening.
Well, and he insisted that he's the stupid drunk guy, so I had to go with it. I mean, he actually said he's the idiot, retarded, stupid drunk guy. And I didn't want to pile that much onto his name because I just thought the three word moniker was best. Stupid drunk guy is 3 words. Kind of like your assassins, Lee Harvey Oswald, John Wilkes Booth, Sirhan Bashir Sirhan. But anyway, they always use their 3 names. So the 3 name thing, we might as well stick with that theme. I like it. All right. Why not? So Dylan. now that we've done that, and you seem to have your Skype troubles under control.
Yeah, I don't know what was up with them, honestly. It might just be my connection sucked.
No problem. Why don't you tell us what's going on with you, though? Let's start out with the fact that you're still on Shake and Wake, right?
Yes. Wednesdays 6 to 8, Saturdays 5 to 7. Those are both Eastern Standard Time.
Right, and that's The Truth Speaks, and you can also find them on YouTube. There's an archive, a small archive of shows. I'm not sure how many you have up there.
I have probably 40 shows, but really none of my shows from the past 2 months, except a couple with Daniel Lewis Crumpton. Those are the only shows I've done on that channel in the past 2 months. I haven't gotten any of my archives. I'm gonna upload those as soon as I get them, though.
Yeah, I've got to do some work on the SoundCloud because I haven't messed with that in at least a month now, and I'm a little behind.
We're both a bit behind.
Yeah, well, look, occasionally life gets in the way of things. But
Yeah.
What have you been discussing on your shows lately, Dylan?
Really, we've just been going over what's going on in the world. My last show was on fear tactics, and yeah, really, we went over most of them: JFK, 9/11, Ebola.
Well, that's an interesting little nexus right there. JFK, well, of course, I had to bring it up tonight because Roger was talking about 9/11. So,
how did you get JFK out of 9/11?
Well, because he was talking about how the press receives it throughout the world, and I was telling him about the history of the JFK assassination, and I do fear that we may be looking at the very same thing. That half a century later, there may be no justice in reality for what was utilized to bring us into unnecessary and illegal warfare in other parts of the world. So, if you tie them together that way, they make perfect sense, actually. And if you look at the mainstream media's coverage of the two things, I mean, look, they learned from their mistakes with JFK when it comes to 9/11. I've told you this several times that, even the 9/11 Commission report, takes some of its cues from the Warren Commission. They realized that it might have been a bad idea to put out those 26 volumes of absolutely ridiculous evidence. So they gave us none with the 9/11 Commission report.
Well,
and a lot of people don't realize that the whole, that whole thing about it having to be unanimous, well, that was because there was dissenting opinions in the Warren Commission. A lot of people don't know this because everybody signed off on it. It must be real, but there was a difference of opinions there. And in fact, they turned around, tried to put it on the record in executive sessions. And I happen to know for a fact that Senator Richard Russell was denied that. And they actually brought in a stenographer who wasn't a true stenographer to take down the notes. And we only find out about this by looking at the executive sessions and the declassified record, some 35 or 40 years later. This is the only way that this was ever discovered. But anybody who took the time to try and talk to the people that worked on the staffs and all that actually know that some of the guys who were involved with that commission weren't on board. Although there were, plenty of people that were definitely with the game plan. People like Gerald Ford, John J. McCloy, Alan Dulles. These guys definitely ran things. So. And did a pretty good job to keep it all coherent. I'll give them that, but not to make sense.
Yeah, well, coherent means to make sense.
Well, I know, but you see, but there is such a thing as a coherent lie, right?
Yeah, but a lie can make sense.
Yeah, but it doesn't when you actually start to dismantle it. But the appearances of a coherent lie, how about that? The appearances of a coherent lie.
Yeah, that's true.
So. That's the way I see that. But anyway, so fear tactics and the absolute need to seize upon the psyche of the populace to get them to acquiesce, as it were, to get them to jump on board with whatever the agenda may be at the time. Very, very relevant. So what else?
That was the last show I did.
Oh, okay.
The next one I'm going to be doing actually is the one I was just talking with Roger about. My show on the new network got moved to their 8 to 10 slot, which has more of an audience.
Ah.
So I got moved up to that, and my first show there is going to be with Roger.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Which network is that?
CJ Mars, the new one I got added on last week.
Oh, okay. So, and that'll also be called The Truth Speaks, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing the same thing I'm doing, which is carrying your name from place to place.
Yep.
Not actually changing the name like some people do.
I'm not original enough to create a new name every time.
Oh, see, now you're stealing my joke, you know? I mean, I didn't have the ability to come up with a catchy name for my show, so I just put my own name on it, you know, lots of originality, and I didn't decide to create an alternate personality to come out and say the things I say. I just do it for myself.
Yeah, same here, but actually the name The Truth Speaks originated from my last show on the YouTube channel that I did with James. We were trying to figure out a good name. James and I agreed on that. We said, we'll use that for the time being and think of a better one when we get the chance. 5 months later, we're still using it.
There you go.
If it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yep, exactly. See, and now everybody gets to hear how much probably Dylan talks to me, because all of a sudden some of the same phrases are coming out of his mouth, which I'll apologize to you for, Dylan. Don't be like me, for God's sake. Help us all. Okay. Even though we both originated, you know, in that strange black hole on the east coast of the United States called New Jersey, it doesn't mean that you have to be like me. Okay.
We're already a lot alike, even before we started talking.
Yeah, sadly for you.
I don't know who that's a scary thought for, me or the rest of the world in the audience.
Well, look, either way, we'll spread like a virus one way or another. So look, did you happen to catch this stuff today with the ISIS crisis or anything else for that matter? Or
the ISIS crisis with the Syrian border town being captured?
Well, the Turkish border town.
I briefly glanced at it on my Google News, but I haven't seen anything more than the headline now. I believe it or not, I actually had to learn today. Or they had to shove information down my throat.
Oh, so you went to the re-education center and got indoctrinated a little further today?
Yes.
Okay. For those of you out there who don't know what that means, Dylan went to school. Okay. So,
yeah, I briefly glanced at it during lunch, but that was about it.
Well, that was more than I was able to do due to a power outage and everything else. You wouldn't believe the stuff that has gone on where I am.
Well, Chuck, the universe wants to stop you from getting on air. I've learned that.
There seems to be a conspiracy against me, yes, and I'm not sure if it's the universe or it's actual living beings on the planet sometimes. But I actually have to struggle to get on to speak usually, yes.
And to get your people on to speak.
Oh, that's another fun thing. Sure. Even, and it's not even this, because some people say, well, okay, maybe it's the network, and it's not, because I did another show with NWO, Truth Radio Mass Media.
How did that go, by the way?
Well, it would have been fine if I didn't have to spend 30 minutes trying to figure out how to get Daniel Lewis Crumpton on with me. Yeah. So that was the fun part. And they have a regular call-in number and everything. And I'm just like, well, gee, nothing's going to work. Thanks. So, and that happened to us on Saturday, which is, usually I try and break up your appearances on my show. But to be honest with you, I couldn't help it this week because it was like, 2 minutes before and I couldn't get things together. And so, you were one of the first people I just thought to speak to, and well, you were available, so we did 2 hours. And of course, anybody that listens to that back in the archive, that's the one where I'm just leaning forward toward the mic and just saying Ebola over and over again.
Because, but we had a lot of fun on that one.
Well, right, and even Hector joined us on that one. So, and if anybody does want to call in, by the way, the lines are open. So 718-717-8296 if you feel like dropping in. I've heard plenty from the drunk guy, and I'm going to give him his airtime pretty soon, and we'll see what happens there. So if anybody else wants to call in, please do. But what do you think about all this stuff, though, Dylan? I mean, really, because it's a different perspective, and let's be honest, there's a different way of looking at the world when you're your age, and realize I'm not trying to speak down to you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to alert you to a reality that the way you see the world now will definitely shift. But it is most interesting to me to kind of examine firsthand from somebody what it is they're seeing at that time in their lives. And as Roger did point out, you're 15. I mean, the state of the world. I mean, what is it saying to you in general?
Well, can you help me pin it down to a specific area you want me to go at? Because asking me my perspective on the state of the world doesn't give me a place to start.
Well, it gives you a generality to work from. All right, fine. Let's look at it this way. The country that you understood, before you were taken to your re-education indoctrination centers, as a child, you knew that you lived in America. You knew that this was supposed to be a free country, right?
Yeah.
So, how about that? Let's start from there and say, what is it that you see at this point in time regarding our whole domestic situation? I mean, and irrespective of the foreign incursions in other lands and the international, it's hard to extract the international systems of influence, but let's just think about it from a domestic perspective. I mean, what do you see in this country? I mean, do you feel hopeful, or do you feel as though it's all going to mud all at once? I mean, what do you think there?
On a domestic perspective, it's going to mud quickly. What I see is a bunch of elites who have gained all the power they need by corrupting the Supreme Court and then corrupting the House and Senate afterwards. They've taken control. I mean, you can argue who it is that's really taking control, but when you get down to it, it's a bunch of people that have the money to control the world controlling it. That's really what it is when you get down to the essentials of it, and they want to gain power by any means necessary. And these people are, well, the people who can stop them, us, are apathetic. We don't care because they've created a false image of or a fear tactic of a scary group trying to kill us all.
Well, not only that, but a series of distractions, too, to keep everybody from really looking at what's going on, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, I mean, you see the influence of the corporatocracy at this point.
Yeah.
The corporations really are the rulers, let's just say, in the most immediate sense. Of course, their strings are being pulled by people, but bottom line is that, the more that the corporations take hold of the reins of power, so to speak, the less we actually see we, the people, having a chance to even look at those reins, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's the most basic level that it's on. I'm sure it goes deeper, but at this point, my basic understanding of domestic, because I really try to focus on their control over the foreign policy, based on what I understand about their domestics, is the same principle as their foreign incursions. They want to gain money, and they don't care who they step on to get there.
Well, all right, but from a cultural, let's just say from a cultural perspective among the populace in your age group, right? What do you see there? I mean, do you think that you're going to have people that are more, like, say, evolved in a way, that are going to, be soon entering adulthood, or do you think they're even more lost than my particularly lost generation?
Well, living in the black hole that I do, I can't speak for every
New Jersey, yeah.
I can't speak for anything outside of Jersey, but this place is still as hopeless as it was during your generation. It still is lost.
Well, okay, but I do mark in my mind that there is a greater amount of true tolerance in your generation, even among the sheep. I would say there is a need for tolerance of one another. There seems to be a greater amount of acceptance of your fellow being. I would say you guys are a lot less combative, I think, than previous generations.
Absolutely, but we're also more apathetic.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's kind of hard to do. I got to be honest.
And I really think we've done it. I don't know how, but I really think we've done it.
Well, with the disconnect that goes on, because look, social media, like I'm a dinosaur when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I mean, the truth is that, the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, the whatever. I mean, everybody's playing with their Vine videos. And watching a guy, scream and throw a garbage can at his little brother or whatever, as opposed to actually studying the world around them. They're just looking to be entertained, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
And that's what seems to be driving the apathy because, look, nothing really matters in the world except maybe that, minor touch of a vicarious thrill you can get from an electronic medium of one type or another. That's what I see. But then again, I'm often kind of chastised for that because it's like, well, but they are different. They're going to utilize this technology in a way that we never imagined. Obviously,
I can put all those criticisms of you for people saying that we'll use it in a different way. I can put all those hopes to rest. We're not going to use them in any more intelligent manner.
Well, I wonder that because, look, all right, let's be blunt here. When I was a kid and coming up, they were talking about the future. There would be computers everywhere, and there would be this great access to information and all the sort of good ideas that could come from, what later on became the internet. What when I was growing up was being called the information superhighway of the future, all that kind of stuff, and well, relative to that, okay, there was this hopeful sort of idea of what would happen. And at the end of the day, I mean, I got to laugh a little bit because as I watched it emerge in the late 90s and stuff, or the mid 90s, excuse me, it was mostly like for pornography and for engaging in like flame wars and chat rooms and nonsense. A lot of nonsense is what really drove the growth of this internet as it is. And I'm wondering if you think that's the kind of thing that it's going to be utilized for in your generation too, or if they're going to, maybe step it up and do something better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hold on, Chuck. 1 sec. Sorry.
No problem. Because the reality is that that this is what it was. I mean, really, seriously. I mean, yeah, there were like fan sites and things like that for mainstream media people. It was like, well, let's let the dummies out there develop, advertising for us and marketing for us that we never dreamed of. The internet was at one point a joke. I mean, in all honesty, I mean, people would say, "Oh, what? You got a website, or you're on the internet?" That's like for like egg-headed people who just have have nothing else better to do because they have no people in their lives. They have to talk to their computer. This was the attitude at one point, believe it or not. And in general, that was, obviously disproven because now, nothing exists without having an internet, without having an internet, sort of module to it, no matter what business it is, no matter what form of information, entertainment, anything. Nothing exists without it being represented in the internet world. But at the same time, these, these sort of constructs didn't exist at one point. And, there is this great opportunity for good things to come out, for the interconnectivity of individuals, for the exchange of ideas, for real time, abilities to speak with people anywhere on the planet, given that you have access to the internet, obviously. But I'm wondering, exactly how far that's going to go when you have, yet another apathetic generation that seems to be more intelligent, that seems to be a bit more enlightened, as it were, regarding the old school kind of social ills that we were still throwing away in the 70s and the 80s and even in the 90s. But at this point in time, I'm wondering what Dylan's feel is for this, being that he is immersed in that generation and from that generation. So that's why I'm asking. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure myself. I don't know. Sorry, that's the best answer I can give. It'll go either way.
Well, you know what? That's an honest answer, though, because in reality, we have no idea where this can all go. We can be done with it all tomorrow if there's a large enough burst from the sun.
What I can say is this:
mm-hmm.
On my little black hole in Jersey, it's not gonna get any better. I don't know how it will be for the rest of my generation. I really don't, because there is so much good in our generation, but there's so much bad too. There's more bad than there is good right now.
Well, it's all about the growing pains during any particular time period. I would say
absolutely.
Social.
I think it can be overcome, and I think if it is, then we'll see something big. If it's not, we're gonna continue this cycle.
Right, and this is the odd thing, is that we expected for many generations that we would continuously upgrade ourselves, continuously upgrade the world around us, the improvements, life of the future, and all that kind of good stuff. And it does seem to me as though, in a lot of ways, things have gone downhill, and here I am, stay off my lawn, you kids. But,
well, I'm right there with you, strangely enough.
Well, that is an oddity, and, but the thing is, I think it's all a crapshoot, really. I really do, and I'm hoping that some better leaders are going to emerge, because I mean, in my generation at this time, this is when our power is really coming to fruition, and this is why it's probably one of the most scary time periods in world history, because Generation X seizing the reins of power, for God's sake. I mean, you don't even know. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you this: Generation Z is going to be a whole lot scarier.
I hope not.
I really hope not too, but it's gonna be a lot scarier, man. Based on what I've seen, based on the people I've seen who want to lead, it's gonna be scary.
Well, the people that leap to be leaders in most cases are not the people that are really emerged to be leaders. It was Jim Garrison who said that true leaders are actually cornered. They're not chosen or selected, and that's the truth. What's going to happen is that if something happens bad enough, people are going to have to emerge to sort of be the preeminent sources, the preeminent voices of their time.
I would do it, but they would get me first.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know. It just seems like things have just gotten so convoluted.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't think it's worth it at this point, because I don't see any way for me to get there with these voter selection system.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. I mean, and I know people also say all the time that when you work on the local level, it's different than the realities regarding the national level and all that kind of stuff. But it's still the same kind of, we have the boys club, and then we have the other boys club, and then we have another boys club, and this is the way things really function in the real world, folks. I mean, you know, I don't put a lot of faith in local politicians or any politician actually, because I mean, just think about the mentality of somebody who selects that job. I mean,
I would never select that job. I wouldn't have the stomach for it.
see, again, this makes you smarter than me because at your age, I might have said that might have been a job for me. You know, because
no offense, Chuck, that's a scary thought.
Well, yeah, I've often said it, and never on this radio show. But imagine, Ochelli for president.
First of God, help us all.
First of all, they'd never elect an Italian, just so you know. Nobody with an Italian name, because there is no way that somebody in the media somewhere would not start the whole, mafia discussion. That's an impossibility. So, I mean, there's no way at all, and I'm also Irish, so good luck there.
So am I, though, so.
Yeah, but I mean...
Irish and German, so good luck.
Well, there you go. But what I'm saying is, typical prejudices would exist there, first of all. But second of all, nobody wants me in charge, man.
No. Chuck, I like it. No.
Yeah, well.
It's a scary thought because you'd wipe California and Jersey off the map.
No, I told you I'd leave Jersey and California there. I would just...
you'd wipe France off the map.
Yes, I would. Yes.
Which might cause some problems.
Day one. Day one. I might accidentally.
How did we get here?
Imagine the firebombing of Dresden as happened. All right, and let's just leave it alone.
Yeah, less said, best said.
Probably at this point, yeah. So with the last 15 minutes here, Dylan, what has been on your mind lately, and what is it that you'd like to get out to people, just in general, sort of, about the things you've been studying, looking into lately? I mean, have you learned anything recently that you find rather fascinating? I mean, floor is yours, sir.
One thing.
Go ahead.
Ebola, be very afraid.
Yeah, that went on. They sort of let that go today, it looks like, a little bit. They actually, the proverbial pit bull decided to unlock its jaws on that one temporarily.
Give it time.
I know. I don't, what is your view on the whole Ebola thing anyway?
Distraction.
Yeah, I mean, and realistically, I mean, I don't know if you recall, but I mean, you remember the whole bird flu and swine flu and all that stuff before.
I remember
SARS.
Flu.
Remember SARS?
No.
Well, SARS was a big deal too. That was the.
Yeah, it's a distraction. Nothing. Most likely, nothing more, nothing less.
So you're not really worried that you're going to go to school one day and wind up catching Ebola from the guy in the desk next to you or anything, huh?
You know what? No. But you know what's funny? We spent an entire assembly at school talking about it.
Oh, tell me about that. Tell me about that, because I'd love to know what happened at the indoctrination center regarding Ebola. I mean, just report it to me. Tell me what they did. I mean, they herded everybody into the auditorium or the gym or whatever to say to you, okay, students, we need to discuss Ebola with you. They really did that?
Yeah, I couldn't. I turned to the person I'm trying to wake up and I said, Look, distraction.
Yeah, well, not as though you could have been in a classroom somewhere learning something about science or nature or history. No, we need to discuss Ebola. So, what was the main message of this wonderful assembly? How long did it take?
They really tried to drag it out. It took them almost. We have 45-minute periods. It took them about 2.5 periods. So it took them 2 hours, roughly.
let's see. Yeah, 2.5 would be a little around 2. So what was the great presentation in 2 hours that they sprung on you? I mean, what was the main message? What was the deal? I mean, was it terrified, be afraid, make sure that if anybody has a fever, we stick them in a box? What?
Essentially, I know you were making that up as a joke, but essentially, it's so sad, man.
So it was okay. Be afraid because this could be anywhere, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So the threat, the ever-present boogeyman threat. You might not see him under your bed, but since you have a chill up your spine, you know he's there. I mean, is that about right?
Yeah, and I'm in the video production class. We had to film it.
Oh my!
So I have it on video. I gotta see if I can get it and upload it.
You ought to play that on your show and stop it every once in a while and just comment on it. You won't need a guest or anything that day.
That would be a great show.
Right. That's all you would need to do. Sorry, I'm giving you show ideas, but I mean...
I had one time in there when I stood up and asked, does this really need a 2-hour assembly?
Wow.
They almost took me out of the room. It was kind of funny.
Nice. See, there's a good point at which you could have mentioned my show to somebody and said, I was listening to this guy on the radio, and he said he said that he doesn't buy all this, and he thinks it's another thing like the bird flu and the swine flu, and nothing's really going to happen anyway. And you could have done that. They might have locked you up, but you could have done it.
They might have. I'm not a huge fan of being locked up because they already have an excuse. I might be insane, so they already have an excuse. I don't need to give them any ammunition.
Yeah, well, welcome to my thought process. Exactly. Okay, so what was the main thrust? I mean, did they have a video presentation or was it just speakers? I mean, did they bring doctors? I mean, tell me about
it. They played a video.
Okay, what was the video?
It was I think it was a Vice News documentary.
Oh, see, now maybe I'm being too hard on your school. They played a Vice News documentary.
I think.
Okay.
But it completely followed the main objective.
Okay, which was what? I mean, what was the main thrust of the video?
This can be anywhere.
Oh, okay. So the boogeyman under your bed thing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it was Vice, but for some reason I'm just thinking it was Vice.
Well, Dylan, I hate to criticize you, but you were paying really great attention here. You should have known where it came from, especially if you still make this debacle.
Can you blame me for not paying attention?
Well, no.
Honestly.
No, but I just wish you would have paid a little more attention so you could have reported these details. I mean...
Yeah, look, I can come back when you've got a free slot because I have the video at my school and I can just watch it.
Cool, because I'll tell you what else. You need to tell me who they had speak. I mean, was it like your school principal? Did they bring
we have 4 principals at our school. Okay. So they had 2 of them come up, speak about it. They had the school nurse come out and speak about it, which is kind of hilarious because our school nurse is not a nurse.
Well, why should she be? I mean,
Yeah, her solution to any problem I have.
Wash your hands?
No. Okay. Call his parents and have them pick him up.
Wonderful.
Even if I just need a Tylenol for my legs.
Well, unless it was, enshrined in a prescription by the unholy, on high doctor, so they can't possibly introduce anything to your system. But you're better off for not getting Tylenol anyway.
But, yeah, probably. But I'm also probably not very good off with leg pain all day either.
No, that's true. But
yeah, I pick my poison.
No problem. But your school nurse, so they didn't bring up like doctors or scientists or anything like that.
Now, Chuck, Why would they bring up somebody who's qualified?
Well, that was my point. Yeah, I mean, why do that? I mean, your school nurse who's probably not a nurse, and and your
She's probably not.
principals, because your principals would be definite awesome sources regarding communicable diseases, right? They would have all of their scientific data.
And then they had our history teacher come up. It was
Ooh,
actually,
what did the
it's actually-
history teacher have to say?
he peddled the same message.
Oh well,
Oh, yeah, I kind of expected that, but hey, I don't even know. I didn't pay any attention to this.
I love it because in the federalized indoctrination center, otherwise known as the school, your principals, your school nurse who's not really a nurse, your history teacher who doesn't actually teach you the real history. These are the people that should really be the reliable sources regarding the on high scary disease, plus a video. Yeah, I can see how this took up 2 hours. Sure, not a problem.
I don't know how they did it, but they can turn anything into a 2-hour thing. It's amazing. I find it kind of incredible that they can do it.
Well, right there, that is absolute proof for why my show exists. You can turn anything into 2 hours. In my ramblings. So, voila. There you go. So.
Wow, that turned into an indirect joke about you. Man, I'm good and I didn't even notice.
Very good. Listen, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back. It's right. It so happens I'm on a 2-hour radio show, and I happen to say you can turn anything into 2 hours. Yeah, that wasn't a good setup or anything, no. Well, look,
you got yourself on that one too.
You know what? I'd rather hit myself than let somebody else hit me.
I respect that.
It's my style, and at least I control the damage that way, or for the most part, anyway.
Yeah. Hey, are you available tomorrow for my show? I don't have anyone.
I do not know. What time of day are we talking about?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. See what else you can do, and then check with me because I may be available at that time. I should be, but I don't want to commit to it unless.
Ken gave me a maybe.
Okay. Well, see about Ken's maybe, and then check with me afterwards because I don't know what'll be going on tomorrow. Every day is a different debacle for me. So.
Yeah, you seem to have a lot of interesting events.
Yeah, they do. They do keep me on my toes. Let's just say.
Yeah, they keep you guessing.
Yep, absolutely. So, since we're almost out of time, I'm going to say this because I did forget to do it at the top of the hour, like I usually try to do. But you know what? I don't even know what I'm doing anymore regarding format, I guess. So you're listening to the Ochelli Effect.
You have a format?
I actually do have a format in mind and just never quite get to it, which sounds like a lot of my life. I got lots of plans and I just never quite get to them. Anyway. So the deal is you're listening to the Ochelli Effect on UCY.TV radio. Of course, this is the Tuesday night with the Liberty Beacon. Dylan Wade is my second hour guest who is still on with me. And, of course, Roger Landry, the founder and just awesome guy at the Liberty Beacon. And I can't recommend him highly enough. Was my guest in the first hour. And as usual, we of course spiraled into some strange areas in the second hour conversation, like always.
But you know what? You probably enjoyed it, so.
Well, some people might have. It seems as though most don't, but that's all right because I'm just going to do it until they take it away from me. Okay, so that's the way it goes. And, again, I want to thank you, Dylan. And, of course, you can find Dylan all over the place with The Truth Speaks with Dylan Wade. Shake and Wake Radio. Blah, blah, blah. It'll be on the new Liberty Beacon radio network when that is flying. And that other network also on YouTube, by the way. But that other network, I keep forgetting the name of.
CJ Mars.
CJ Mars. Okay. So I would look for Dylan all over the place there, and you never know what he's going to do. He pulls rabbits out of the hat too.
Yeah. You and I have that in common, too.
Yeah, you never quite know which direction we're going to go in. Hopefully, I'll be doing a show on silver. You know what? I'm going to have the guys from zeninthecar.com on Thursday to have kind of a very unique sort of roundtable discussion. So,
cool.
So everybody might want to check that one out.
Are you trying to keep it exclusively Zen in the Car?
Yeah, pretty much. I want to get those guys to do it. But, look, you can always drop in.
Webcam microphone up close. Webcam microphone up close.
At the age of 19 in 1962, she was
but I have the files. I read this stuff at the National Archives, and I read these other things. I said to myself, how can that be possible? The brain, crystals and fondle slab of choice. I don't know when that was. The internet, professional wrestlers, and not just Ventura style. It doesn't matter where the information comes from, as long as it's real. It's hard to get real information because seriously, they don't want you to have just read two together.